Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1081. Mo Wu Dao. Jean Wu Feng had never expected this last to be this sharp-tongued. Every single line was so insulting, as if she were hinting at something else. From her words, it was as if she knew something. He couldn't help but feel more wary of her. But he was just having groundless fears. The reason why Miao Xiao Miao said these was completely because she was forced by their words, and not because she really got a hold on some secret of the Zhan family. But as the saying went, a casual remark sounds significant to a suspicious listener. The moment Jean Wu Feng heard this, he felt something is off and couldn't help but begin to feel suspicious. Stop bickering. We are making this trip representing the misty illusory manor. Why are we bickering amongst ourselves? Jean Wu Feng, you are already a few hundred years old. Wrangling with a young lass in such an unbridled manner. Do you still have any shame? Miao Dao turned around and chided impatiently, his cold gaze looking at Zhan Wu Yun. But his protectiveness over Miao Xiao Miao was clear in his words. Jean Wu Feng turned red and immediately shut his mouth. Miao Zhan scoffed coldly. He found these people from the Zhan family insufferable. Since he already intended not to bring these people back alive, naturally he had no need to banter with a few people who were about to die. But he still felt that time was passing a little too slowly, letting these bastards behave so arrogantly like this before him. Right now, Miao Zhan was thinking, should I let these people die in the hands of the evil monarch? Or just let them die in my hands? Since they're destined not to return alive, as opposed to letting an outsider have it easy, might as well do it ourselves, so that their deaths will not bring down the mighty repute of the misty illusory manor. Miao Jian breathed out slowly and mumbled to himself. Why haven't the people from 3 Holy Lands arrived yet? Although this is a distance from the 3 Holy Lands, but it doesn't make sense for not a single one of them not arriving yet. Miao Dao smiled. The 3 Holy Lands have always been eruptive in the way they handle things. They often gain the initiative by striking first, catching the enemy off guard. I believe they're already near. Just as he was saying this, Miao Dao's expression changed. Following which, Miao Jian and Miao Zhan's expressions also turned serious. All 3 of them turned to look in the direction of a dense forest. There was a powerful aura coming over from that direction at exceedingly high speed. Miao Dao shook his head and said in bewilderment, how uncanny. Speak of the devil. Miao Jian shook his head and uttered softly, the people of the Holy Lands are really devils. You speak of the bastard and he comes. Miao Xiao Miao guffawed, her body trembling from the laughter. Miao Jian's words are really insulting. Brother Miao, to arrive this early. Ha! Looks like the misty illusory manor is rather concerned about this matter with the evil monarch. We have allowed Brother Miao to wait for us for so long. That is truly great sin. Ah! A clear, unfettered voice rang out. Following this voice, 7 white figures appeared from the dense forest. Brother Gu, why is it you who has came personally? Looks like the elusive world of immortals came prepared. Ah! Miao Zhan laughed and walked over to greet. From the shadows of the forest, 7 white figures emerged. 6 males and a female. They were all donned in white robes. The men had ash-gray hair, and a sharp look in their eyes. The only woman amongst them looked like she had walked out of a painting. An ethereal beauty like an immortal who had descended in the mortal world. I believe this one in the middle is the current palace lord of the elusive world of immortals. Mo Wu Dao. Miao Zhan's eyes landed on that man in the center of the 7 people with a curious look in his eyes. This person's face was handsome like a crowned jade with delicate features. He had white robes that contrasted with his black hair. Upon first look, he really looked like an otherworldly existence, extremely carefree and unfettered. And most importantly, amongst these 7 people, he had the lowest cultivation. Just in terms of cultivation, he was only slightly stronger than Miao Xiao Miao and Zhan Yuting, amongst those who were present. But he had an air of calmness, confidence, and ease, with a vague tinge of nobility, as if he gave orders without even opening his mouth. And of the other 6 people, amongst the 5 men, 3 were Saint Emperors and were 2 Saint Venerables. And that beautiful female also has the cultivation level of a Saint Venerable. Her strength slightly higher amongst all of them. These 6 people may be above Mo Wu Dao in terms of their cultivation, but in terms of presence, he stood out exceedingly. It was enough to tell that this person was not ordinary. This was a demeanor that was cultivated from giving orders from a high position for a long time. The other people didn't have it. Mo Wu Dao had a kind look in his eyes as he looked at Miao Zhan and greeted him with a smile. This is Miao Zhan from Misty Illusory Manor. Senior Miao. This junior Mo Wu Dao greets senior. His words were extremely ordinary, but the moment this ordinary sentence came out of his mouth, it gave one a genuine and sincere feeling. Coupled with the look in his eyes, everyone felt that his greeting was sincere and heartfelt, with not the slightest bit of falseness. Miao Zhan looked at him for a while silently. Mo Wu Dao maintained his smile, although he did not open his mouth to speak again. But that sincere smile and clear look in his eyes made one feel that this person was a modest gentleman and worth befriending. Mo Wu Dao, truly remarkable. Miao Zhan sighed softly. Just this demeanor alone was truly rare to find in the Misty Illusory Manor, with the exception of Miao Huanyu. No wonder this person can rule the elusive world of immortals with the strength of a 3rd-level venerable with no one who unconvinced. Just this profound shrewdness in his methods alone is already unsurpassable. Wu Dao is unworthy of that praise of remarkable from senior. Worldly affairs have bothered me for many years and I am truly ashamed to not have made any improvements in my cultivation. Senior Qiao Ying is the head for the journey this time. This junior is merely here to make up for the numbers. Mo Wu Dao said, pointing to the woman in their group. That elegant woman was Qiao Ying. With Qiao Ying's status and position, she need not come forth on this trip. But Qiao Ying was truly worried about the exquisite lotus that Jun Mo Xie had taken. To Qiao Ying, those exquisite lotus were like her own children. How could she not be deeply worried? This sort of feeling was naturally incomparable to others. Qiao Ying may be powerful and was the one in command for this trip amongst all the rest from the elusive world of immortals. But when it came to handling affairs, it was the opposite case. But it was a fact that her status is extraordinary. So although Mo Wu Dao was the palace lord of elusive world of immortals, he still treated her with respect. But no one would believe that she was the one in command for this journey. This is Miss Qiao Ying. We've heard of your great name for a long time. Miao Zhan said sincerely. In the entire Misty Illusory Manor, almost everyone knew of Qiao Ying's name. She was the only other unique existence that had eaten the 7-colored holy fruit outside of Misty Illusory Manor. And at the same time, she was also fortunate enough to eat the exquisite lotus. And more than once. This sort of good fortune blessed by heavens was truly matchless. Not only Miao Zhan, but Miao Dao, Miao Jian, Miao Xiao Miao, and those from the Zhan family also focused their gaze on Qiao Ying. They had all heard of her name, but had never seen her before. So it was really an eye-opener for them today. Qiao Ying may have high cultivation, but compared to an ordinary person with no Xian cultivation, she was at a loss as to how to react to the looks from everyone else. She didn't know how to reply. Having seen the svelty of all the seniors today, the misty illusory manner truly lives up to its reputation. Mo Wu Dao is truly ashamed. Mo Wu Dao sighed. As he spoke, he shook his head. His low spirits were obvious on his face. And there was a flash of shame. Although it was only a flash, everyone saw it. This made one believe that this person admitting to his own flaws, practical and realistic, not exaggerating at all. He was truly one who was worthy of being trusted. Just this line alone had saved Xiao Ying from her self-awkwardness. Truly smooth and slick enough to make everything go his way. The Holy Lands controls the world and rules over the secular world. If not for Palace Lord Mo ruling the elusive world of immortals, how will those old fellows have the time to cultivate? Miao Zhan said with a smile. Palace Lord Mo may have been hindered in your cultivation, but it is all for the welfare of all the lives in the world. Your current work will benefit the next 1,000 years to come. This old man and the rest is truly feels deep veneration for someone like Palace Lord. Even if your cultivation is somewhat weak. But what does that matter? It could be seen that Miao Zhan had a good impression of Mo Wu Dao. It was truly difficult to feel dislike a person when facing someone like this. Mo Wu Dao laughed carefreely. How could I not understand this logic? It's just that, everyone is capable of speaking about this logic. Even myself included, but it is still inevitable to feel some disappointment. Wu Dao's immature antics have truly incurred seniors' ridicule. As they talked, both parties have easily walked alongside towards the tents that they had set up earlier. The three Saint Emperors from the elusive world of immortals began to swiftly set up their own tents beside those that the misty illusory manor had set up. They may be Saint Emperor experts, but compared to Miao Zhan and Qiao Ying, they really did not amount to anything much. Everyone exchanged pleasantries and entered the tent, sitting down accordingly to their statuses. Mo Wu Dao may be a junior, but he was still the palace lord of the elusive world of immortals. And at the same time, his words counted most amongst all these present. So he took the first seat. Mo Wu Dao was seated. Then Qiao Ying, who was the one in command in name only, sat down in the second seat. I wonder what opinions the seniors of Misty Illusory Manor have towards the evil monarch opening his own faction. Mo Wu Dao asked with a smile, a calm look in his eyes, and a humble expression on his face. The moment this sentence was said, Miao Dao, Miao Jian, Miao Zhan and Zhan Wufeng sensed it at the same time. Through only a couple of exchange of greetings and his unique charisma and speech, Mo Wu Dao had successfully taken control of the direction of the conversation. This man was truly impressive. His question was, what opinion do they have towards the evil monarch opening his faction? There was no problem with this question upon first glance. It was a very ordinary question. But everyone's line of thought was completely confined within this topic. The moment you spoke, you must answer his question first. And while this question may seem like an ordinary question at first glance, there was an extremely sharp focus hidden within. And it was focusing on the evil monarch. The four of them knew that the moment Mo Wu Dao began with this sentence, if they were unable to bring out another topic too strong enough to change the current one, all the conversations that followed would be controlled by Mo Wu Dao and would be headed in the direction that was unfavorable for the evil monarch. And this sort of situation was extremely unfavorable for those from Misty Illusory Manor, who had already made up their mind to stand by, stay neutral and observe first. But everyone had come because of the matter of the evil monarch starting his own faction. So what other topic could be more important than this? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1082. Why? I wonder what is Palace Lord Mo's opinion. Miao Zhan chuckled. The misty illusory manor, belongs away from the secular world. When it comes to the Xian continent, we will forever watch from afar. We really do not have much understanding of the evil monarch. Palace Lord Mo can share your opinions and the tactics the elusive world of immortals will be employing this time. We use it as a reference. How is that? Mo Wu Dao laughed bitterly. Senior Miao is truly impressive. Just a sentence alone. You've pushed this question back to this junior. However, as to this matter, I truly have nothing to say. It is not because I'm trying to evade giving my opinions, but because, my brother, Mo Xiaoyao, truly died a tragic death in the hands of the evil monarch Jun Mo Xie. This vengeance and hatred is too deep. So, no matter what I say, it will be biased and unfair. He furrowed his brows, as if he were in a pinch. If seniors could give me your pointers, that would be best. But if it is difficult to have an opinion yet, then it's wait for Supreme Golden City Shi Ruo Chen and illusory blood Si Huyan Ao Bo to arrive first. Then, we can come up with a countermeasure to deal with this situation together. Miao Zhan gave a non-committal smile and replied. Palace Lord Mo is frank. Speaking from your bottom of your heart. But it has been a tiring journey for everyone. We should get some rest first. This matter is not urgent. There is still time before the 15th. We completely have enough time to gather our brains to think of a perfect countermeasure. A sharp look flashed across Mo Wu Dao's eyes before vanishing. He smiled sincerely and replied. As such, I'd have to trouble Senior to worry about it then. Everyone from the Miao family returned to their tent. All of them wearing a frown. Zhan Wuyun also came in to join them, sitting down. What do you think of this Mo Wu Dao? Miao Zhan asked solemnly, looking at everyone with his brows furrowed. This Mo Wu Dao is truly difficult to analyze. If we are able to figure him out, I believe it will be the equivalent of figuring out half of Jun Mo Xie. Mo Wu Dao holds the leading position amongst the three holy lands. Then in the future, if we work with the three holy lands in the future, we will have more confidence. And our current goal is to find out the disposition and characteristics of Jun Mo Xie, as well as his strengths and weaknesses. If the three holy lands are really defeated, this is also a necessary point for working with the evil monarch. This is also what the Manor Lord had seriously instructed us to absolutely do before we came. And it must be done well. Miao Zhan was very serious and cautious when he said this line. Especially when he said the line, if the three holy lands are really defeated. He obviously hesitated, but ultimately said it. But it was obvious that he had extreme difficulty getting the word defeated out. As if in the heart of this expert of misty illusory manner, the defeat of the three holy lands in the hands of the evil monarch was something that sounded ridiculous, but not completely impossible. The moment this was said, everyone fell into deep thoughts. Everyone was clear what Miao Zhan meant by his words. They only had a brief interaction with Mo Wu Dao. They had barely had any significant exchanges and they parted ways just like that. Everyone could easily repeat the conversation between Miao Zhan and Mo Wu Dao earlier. They were just pleasantries. From start to end, they were just pleasantries. But Miao Zhan wanted to find out valuable information from these couple of pleasantries. And from there, analyze Mo Wu Dao as a person. These were high expectations. Even Miao Xiao Miao was shocked. In her point of view, from how harmonious the exchange between both parties were just now, she though this sixth grandpa had a good impression of this palace lord of elusive world of immortals. As if there was a familiarity at first sight. Who knew that the moment he turned around, he wanted to dissect the other person's mind and thoughts. The world of the adults was truly incomprehensible. This person, Wu Dao. Wu Dao. Miao Dao scrunched his brows and began to think hard. He and Miao Jian were people who were like murderous butchers. It was really not their forte to be thinking and analyzing in detail. After murmuring to himself for quite a while, he said, I don't know why. I just don't like this person. After such a long time, he only managed to come up with this sentence. Miao Zhan was extremely angry. You don't say? Who cares whether you like or dislike him? I only want to know why. And this instead. You don't even know this most important part. But Miao Jian was nodding his head aggressively, agreeing with his brother. Miao Xiao Miao burst into giggles. Wu Feng, you go first. Miao Zhan sighed. This was also the greatest meaning he had for calling Zhan Wu Feng. And the only purpose and use Zhan Wu Feng had on this operation. Only someone who was used to playing with schemes and plots was an expert at analyzing. Letting him make an analysis was making good use of someone's talent. Wu Dao. Zhan Wu Feng sucked in a breath of air as he tried to recall everything that occurred earlier. This person as an heir of a leader and is extremely approachable, making people unknowingly feel refreshed and harmonious when around him. And one more thing, be it in his words or actions, it reveals that he is someone with good upbringing and poise. When he speaks, he always looks right into the eyes of the other party, and his gaze is sincere, showing his utmost sincerity. Especially when it comes to his control of his speech. It is likely that he has gone through strict training. He knows exactly which words to emphasize, which sentence to intentionally deliver later, what tone to use for each word. Zhan Wu Feng said, this is something that only aristocrats need to be trained in. But most aristocratic families will not go to this extent. Someone like this will not appear without the accumulated efforts of numerous generations. Yet Wu Dao has been brought to the point of perfection and can be said to be an expert amongst experts in this aspect, which is truly exceptional. A genuine look of admiration appeared in Miao Zhan's eyes. This analysis by Zhan Wu Feng began from the exterior in dissecting Wu Dao as a person. He did not go straight into determining how this person was like, but instead, through his words and speech, it outlined Wu Dao's manner and temperament. No wonder this person was considered the second in command in the Zhan family. He truly was extraordinary. And there is one more thing that is important. Wu Dao is exceptionally good at taking control of situations subtly. Each time he takes control of the direction of the conversation, he makes use of the other party's replies to subtly yet forcefully bring the control back to himself. Yet he is invulnerable. If not for this review in hindsight, one really might not see this truth. Zhan Wu Feng raised his head and closed his eyes as he carefully recalled the scenario earlier. But he continued to speak slowly. In fact, the moment he said his first sentence, he had already revealed his hostility towards the evil monarch. But it did not come out from his mouth. He was hoping that someone else would spell it out for him. Had it been anyone else, they may really fall into his trap. Upon seeing Sixth Uncle's rejection of commenting, as if he realized that this method didn't work, he promptly retreated and changed to a tactic of retreating to advance further. By taking the initiative to speak of how his brother died in the hands of Jun Mo Xie, he would be able to shun from suspicion. Otherwise, his words would be biased and unfair. This will make us feel that he is frank and will absolutely remain impartial despite his personal reasons, which will in turn further gain our recognition and leave a favorable impression. Zhan Wufeng was a generation lower than Miao Zhan, Miao Dao and Miao Jian, so he referred to him as sixth uncle. In this way, first, we will understand that there is an immense hatred and enmity between the two of them that is irreconcilable. Secondly, he showed his fairness and strict impartialness, putting on an image of a fair and upright hero, making everyone feel a deep veneration for him. Everyone who hears his words will think, his own brother has been killed by someone, but he is still able to keep to his principles of being fair. This person is truly one who is benevolent, which is admirable. And when he puts it this way, although it makes clear of the fairness he upholds, it is essentially the greatest unfairness. Because we will think, Wu Dao is so highly principled, but Jun Mo Xie still killed his brother. Then Jun Mo Xie is in the wrong. Until today, the enmity between them has yet to be resolved. Is this Jun Mo Xie a huge demon? The type that is capable of all sorts of evil? So although Wu Dao portrays himself as backing off, he essentially had taken a great step forward. And if we're unable to analyze and see this step he took, we will subconsciously develop a prejudice against Jun Mo Xie, or even a definitive opinion of Jun Mo Xie. Subconsciously. In our future interactions with Jun Mo Xie, we will feel estranged about him. We don't even need to handle anything, just a glance will suffice. And for Jun Mo Xie to be able to get to where he is today, how could he be simple? Every look and action will be enough for him to notice. The moment he is on his guard, during this sensitive period, his subconscious mind will regard the misty illusory manner as his enemy. And the three holy lands only needs to add fuel to the fire, and it will become a fact, even if it is not our intention. So, all these can be said to be Wu Dao's plot. In a couple of exchanges, he created a powerful enemy for Jun Mo Xie, and at the same time, obtained a definite ally for the three holy lands. Because from the news, this person Jun Mo Xie is someone who has an unbridled and absolutely unrestrained temperament. This person has never bothered about who his opponents were and has never been afraid. When it is time to strike, he will go ahead even if it's the emperor. He even dares to offend the three holy lands so blatantly. Then that goes to say that he may not necessarily be bothered by the misty illusory manner. At most, he only did not wish to have to deal with another strong opponent when he was dealing with the three holy lands. So the moment we heard Wu Dao's words, and it develops an impact on us, even if it is the slightest, the opposition between us and evil monarch is inevitable. Because this is the only weakness someone Jun Mo Xie has that his opponent can use. Amplifying the greatest trait of the enemy and making use of it, Wu Dao is truly outstanding in his schemes and tactics. Zhan Wuyun let out a long sigh, his throat feeling a little parched from talking. He glanced around to look for a cup and poured some water for himself and gulped it down. After he rubbed his mouth, he continued. So, sixth uncle. Wu Feng thinks that this person Wu Dao is very sinister. He intends to make use of us. There is no doubt about this. Zhan Wufeng had provided a thorough and clear, logical analysis. But Miao Zhan, Miao Xiao Miao, Miao Dao and Miao Jian were perplexed hearing this. Because putting aside whether Zhan Wufeng's analysis was reasonable temporarily, the premise he spoke of was extremely clear. He stood firmly on the side of Jun Mo Xie. Firm and unwavering. But why? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1083. digging their own grave. This Zhan Wufeng didn't seem to have ever met this evil monarch before. Although his analysis was reasonable and even very accurate, him speaking like this seemed as if he were speaking up for Jun Mo Xie. What kind of relationship do they have? Miao Zhan furrowed his brows and thought deeply for a long moment, before finally understanding. And because he understood, he could not help but to make a strange sound in his throat, before coughing violently. He coughed so hard that his entire body shook, and his face turned red as he nearly fainted. Why would a powerful saint venerable suddenly cough in such a manner? Because Zhan Wufeng's intention was actually to deliver a blow to the Miao family. Because from certain angles, the Miao family could be said to be almost unrivaled in the entire misty illusory manner. As for the future, they had the legendary free and natural physique whose potential was said to be endless, as their son-in-law. If there were no accidents, this son-in-law would surely become the strongest pillar supporting the Miao family in the future. And that was a result that the Zhan family could not allow. Thus, Zhan Wufeng was hoping to use Jun Mo Xie to oppose the great prodigy Mo. Using Jun Mo Xie to utterly crush Mo Jun Xie. Because in this world, it seemed that only Jun Mo Xie had the capability to rival Mo Jun Xie. Furthermore, the former would be able to claim superiority with great ease. There was definitely no third youngster who could be compared alongside those two. The misty illusory manor had only come here this time to take a better look at this new power, so that they could better decide who to throw their lot with, ensuring an utterly safe bet. As the Zhan family, they had come with their own little plans. Before they reached here, they had already decided that the Zhan family would work with Jun Mo Xie. Miao Zhan had been completely spot on with his guess. This was undoubtedly the best plan for the Zhan family. It was also the main goal for Zhan Wufeng's trip to Xian continent this time. To properly, with the greatest effort, and regardless of the price, rope Jun Mo Xie in. If they could really establish a proper cooperative relationship with Jun Mo Xie, it would definitely be a deal that would only benefit and not harm the Zhan family. If Jun Mo Xie's abilities were really great enough, ultimately managing to destroy the Holy Lands, then the Zhan family's position in the misty illusory manor would naturally also rise by association with him. It was even possible for them to push the Miao family down in one stroke. The reason for this was simple. If the entire Xian continent was in the hands of the Zhan family's most loyal ally, Jun Mo Xie, even the misty illusory manor would have no choice but to concede in some areas. After all, the misty illusory manor still needed to rely on the Xian continent for a large amount of precious resources. As the strongest ally of Jun Mo Xie, it would be ridiculous if the Zhan family did not get any advantages. Even if Jun Mo Xie, this evil monarch, was defeated, the Zhan family would still use all their abilities to prevent Jun Mo Xie from dying. After that, they would extend their hand and invite him into the misty illusory manor. That way, the Zhan family would have gained another peak-level expert. Furthermore, he was a fully grown, unrivaled talent whose potential far surpassed even the free and natural physique. With him, the Zhan family could still command great authority in the misty illusory manor. At most, they would only need to spend some effort to stop the three Holy Lands from pursuing the matter. However, the profits would still be incredibly huge. Even if Jun Mo Xie only helped the Zhan family to deal with the Miao family as gratitude for them saving him, it would still be a great opportunity for the Zhan family. After all, if Jun Mo Xie went to the misty illusory manor, it meant that Jun Mo Xie would also be standing alongside Mo Jun Xie, representing the future of the entire misty illusory manor. This strategy that the Zhan family had conceived could be said to be exceedingly clever, and even the strictest people would not be able to find a loophole in this plan. However, this entire plan rested on a very simple precondition. That was that Jun Mo Xie and Mo Jun Xie were two different people, that was all. As long as the two were different people, there would truly be no loopholes. Furthermore, the chances of their plan succeeding would be very high. Sending pillows to a person in need of sleep, and delivering coal in winter. In a situation where the three holy lands were breathing down on his neck like a heavy mountain, the support from the Zhan family could definitely be said to be delivering coal in winter. Even if Jun Mo Xie were more hard-hearted, he would still feel grateful for this huge favor. After all, at Jun Mo Xie's level of cultivation, it was truly quite difficult for him to be killed. No matter how powerful the opposing force was, as long as he could endure for a short moment, the Zhan family would definitely be able to rescue him. With Jun Mo Xie's current abilities, even if his opponent were the 9th young master, he would definitely be able to endure for a short time. The Zhan family's investment would surely see a return far above their expectations. This plan of the Zhan family could only be described as brilliant. After having their grand plan of 1,000 years destroyed, they were still able to come with this plan that was not inferior to the previous one. The talents in the Zhan family were indeed impressive. Their wit and scheming abilities were even more amazing. Unfortunately, the matters of this world were indeed so miraculous. The simple precondition was actually not that simple. Regrettably, the Jun Mo Xie whom the Zhan family had been intending to support as a rival for Mo Jun Xie, was actually the same person. Jun Mo Xie was Mo Jun Xie and also the genius son-in-law of the Miao family. So no matter how detailed and seamless the Zhan family's plan was, it would ultimately only end up as a joke. After using all that effort, they would find out that they had only been using that strength to dig their own graves. Digging the hole perfectly, and then plunging headfirst into it with the entire family in tow. Who had ever heard of such a thing? Because of this exact reason, Miao Zhan, who suddenly understood everything, started coughing and choking. Was this a fucking drama? Could it be that there were really no stories without a coincidence? Was there actually really such a contradictory thing in the world? Looks like the Zhan family's luck had truly hit rock bottom this time. How did they even come up with such a perfect grave digging plan? How fucking talented ah! The entire family is filled with geniuses. Sixth grandpa, what's wrong with you? Are you all right? Miao Xiao Miao cried out in shock. A Saint Venerable expert suddenly coughing so heavily, this was something that would not occur even for an aged person with silver xian cultivation. I'm fine, cool. Miao Zhan finally managed to stop his coughing as he twisted his facial expression with great difficulty and said. This old man was truly too shocked. Wu Feng's analysis was too good. This old man had already tried to think as badly about Wu Dao as possible. But I hadn't considered it to such an extent. Looks like the talented truly come from the younger generation. This old man is too useless and old now. Zhan Wufeng laughed aloud and said modestly, Sixth uncle has spoken too heavily. Sixth uncle has only become wiser with age. If you made any mistakes in judging a person, it's only because sixth uncle is a righteous and forthright person, never dealing with others with schemes. For this junior to be able to share the burdens is only natural. I'm truly too old now. Miao Zhan shook his head and sighed. So, since we've already identified Wu Dao's scheme, what should we do about the actual event? Miao Dao asked. No matter what, we should still act according to our original plan, dealing with change by remaining steady. In addition, we should be more careful with our every move from here on. Miao Zhan sighed heavily and said. Regardless of what kinds of scheme Mo Wu Dao is planning, we need to stand our ground. We are not seeking momentary gains, but an ally to cooperate with in the long term. No matter how deep his schemes are, we just need to pretend as if we can't see it. Zhan Wufeng laughed and nodded. Sixth uncle is indeed wise, dealing with changes by remaining steady. That is the best method for our current circumstances. He wasn't worried that they would change their decision. Because the Miao family's decision would always need to bear the responsibility of the entire misty illusory manor. And the Zhan family could only proceed with their own plans when the Miao family was bearing the weight of the responsibilities of the entire misty illusory manor. If there were no misty illusory manor, or if it collapsed, what meaning would there be even if the Zhan family occupied the entire misty illusory manor alone? From certain angles, it wasn't wrong to say that the Zhan family was the biggest parasite of the misty illusory manor. But Miao Xiao Miao only became more and more confused as she listened. That Jun Mo Xie, just what kind of person is he? The more she heard, the more shocked she had grown. The people here were all very important members of the misty illusory manor. But regardless of the Zhan family or the Miao family, all of them had given Jun Mo Xie an extremely high evaluation. It could even be considered to be too high of an evaluation. In so many years, this was still the first time that Miao Xiao Miao had seen the Miao family and the Zhan family agreeing on something. And all this was because of that evil monarch. Jun Mo Xie, this question, you should save it for tomorrow to ask Mo Wu Dao yourself. Perhaps tomorrow, when the rest of the three holy lands arrive, you will be able to understand more. The information we have now is still quite incomplete. Miao Zhan looked somewhat meaningfully at Miao Xiao Miao and said. His words seemed to have another meaning within them, but Miao Xiao Miao could only sense that this sixth grandpa was speaking a little strangely. As to what was strange about it, she could not tell. On that very night, the people from the illusory Blood Sea and the Supreme Golden City also arrived, one after the other. As expected from the experts of the misty illusory manor, these two holy lands had also come here, led personally by their palace lords. If one only looked at the status of the guests that showed up this time, the three holy lands could be said to have given this evil monarch plenty of face. The leaders of the three holy lands had all come personally to offer their congratulations, from ancient times. Only the misty illusory manor had seen such an honor when they held their own opening ceremony many years ago. And that was a matter over 10,000 years ago. And now, it was as if history had repeated itself, causing everyone to gasp with shock and surprise. At that time, the three holy lands was also quite unwilling to let the misty illusory manor be independent. Their congratulations were also filled with deep animosity and was extremely volatile. If not for Miao Qing Cheng's good relations with his other senior brothers, a big fight might have erupted that day, with all parties suffering heavy losses. From the looks of the situation this time, the tension in the air was no less than that time. It was similarly extremely volatile, as if the slightest wrong move by either side would instantly herald a river of blood. The Supreme Golden City Shirua Chen had also brought along 6 great experts, same as the illusory Blood Sea's Huyan Ao Bo. With a single look, it was obvious that the three factions had already decided on this together. Even their lineups were exactly the same. Another common point was that these people's faces were equally heavy. As dawn arrived, everyone gathered together and began to discuss their course of action. Miao Xiao Miao, being young, could not help herself, and asked again, "This Jun Mo Xie, just what kind of person is he?" Miao Xiao Miao was truly very adamant about this question. Because she was very unconvinced. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1084. The contradiction that is Jun Mo Xie. How is my Junyi worse than that Jun Mo Xie? But why didn't he get such a high evaluation? This is too unfair, based on what? What's so good about that Jun Mo Xie? My Junyi has the legendary free and natural physique. Even if his cultivation is a little lacking now, it's only temporary. Given a bit more time, his achievements will be inestimable. Jun Mo Xie. The moment this name was mentioned, the faces of the 3 palace lords and the 18 experts beside them instantly turned ugly. In addition, there was even a hint of fear. That person, it's truly hard to say. Shi Ruochen sucked in a deep breath of air and pulled out a stack of papers, tens of pages thick. This is all the information we've collected on Jun Mo Xie. It's been studied countless times, theorized over, and studied again and again. If all the information is brought out, I'm afraid this entire tent would be filled. This is simply a tiny portion of what we have gathered on him. Truthfully, our 3 holy lands have evaluated Jun Mo Xie personally. And the results are actually widely divergent. Huyen Ao Bo sighed and took out a stack of papers as well. Mo Wu Dao smiled bitterly and similarly pulled out a bunch of papers. How could that be? Isn't he just a youngster that isn't even 20? How could it be that complicated? This time, not only Miao Xiao Miao, but Miao Dao and the rest were also confused. Mo Wu Dao furrowed his brows lightly and read in a slow tone. Jun Mo Xie. Male. 19 years of age this year. Citizen of Tianxiang. Grandfather is Jun Zhantian. Father is Jun Wu Hui. Mother is Dongfang Wen Xian of the Dongfang aristocratic family. He proceeded to recite the names of everyone in the Jun family and even introduced them with great seriousness. His research was very detailed, and even the little maid Kur was not missed. The attitudes and ways in which Jun Mo Xie interacted with others from the time of his childhood till present had been recorded in detail. That can't be. Palace Lord Mo. How could there be such a big difference in the character of this person from when he was young and now? Miao Dao furrowed his brows. This is also the part we are the most confused about. Mo Wu Dao said with a bitter smile. From the age of 12, Jun Mo Xie had already begun committing all kinds of debaucherous acts. He once went with his equally bad friends to a brothel in Tianxiang, and, after that, they became unreasonable, saying that the experience was not comfortable, refusing to pay up. They even beat the whore half to death. And when the boss of the brothel went up to them to beg for mercy, Jun Mo Xie proceeded to thrash the entire brothel. Miao Xiao Miao exclaimed with disbelief. Who would have imagined that this evil monarch was such a base and despicable person in the past? To think that they had the face to compare him with her Junyi. As Mo Wu Dao spoke here, he sighed. With regards to this matter, we've made several analyses. Whether it's an act done as a cover-up to something else, or if it was purely the work of a rich debauchee, there are many different opinions on this. And there aren't any conclusions yet. Miao Xiao Miao was even more shocked now. Was there still a need to analyze this kind of behavior? At 12.5 years old, Jun Mo Xie rode a horse wildly down a busy street, trampling over 7 people. 3 were paralyzed. When he went home, his grandfather Jun Zhantian was incredibly enraged and gave him a fierce beating. According to some, his legs were nearly broken because of the beating. There are many confusing points about this event as well. With Jun Mo Xie's current level, he should have already begun cultivating at that time. How could a cultivator's legs be broken so easily? However, there was even a record of this in Tianxiang City's hospital. Even the imperial physician personally went out. This matter didn't seem to be fake. If he'd already begun acting from that point, then this matter is worthy of extensive thought. It was Shi Ruochen who spoke this time. When Jun Mo Xie was almost 13, he saw a commoner girl on the streets whom he found to his liking. So, he beat up the girl's parents and forcefully kidnapped her home to abuse. Fortunately, he was stopped by his grandfather and given another beating. After that, the girl was returned to her parents and a large compensation was given. Wu Dao sucked in a deep breath of air and continued. We recently found out that that girl is already married with child. Furthermore, Wu Dao coughed dryly and said, when the girl was married, she was still a virgin. Miao Xiao Miao's face turned red, and a look of contempt appeared in her eyes. This Jun Mo Xie is simply a human scum. I actually compared him to my Jun Yi. How shameful is this for Jun Yi? That is where this matter is the most strange. Wu Dao furrowed his brows and continued. Since she'd been kidnapped home, how did Jun Zhangtian make it in time to rescue her? One has to know, that matter doesn't take that much time, so how was she able to retain her purity? Qiao Ying and Miao Xiao Miao both snorted lightly and turned around with red faces. What these people didn't know was that the things that they were so confused about was actually all done by the original Jun Mo Xie before Jun Xie crossed over. The original Jun Mo Xie was a truly lawless and despicable scum. There was nothing to debate about that at all. The first time a person visited a brothel should be a fun experience. For some, it would even be a painful experience, and, because it was painful, it would naturally be uncomfortable. Since it wasn't a satisfactory experience, how would he be willing to pay up? Smashing the brothel up was just to vent his anger. As for the kidnapping, it was simply because he had failed to lose his virginity the last time, which was why he acted on impulse to try again. But right after snatching the girl back, he was pulled away by Fatty Tang Yuan to drink. When he returned in a drunken state, the girl had already been released by Old Master Jun. It was that simple. But the three Holy Lands had carried out an extensive investigation because of those actions, taking statements from all the witnesses they could find. Why did he do that at that time? Were there any deeper meanings behind his actions? Perhaps it was a requirement for his cultivation? Or was there some other reason? After all, that same despicable debauchee was the current evil monarch who was renowned throughout the world. Right now, who would believe that a person with a status as high as the evil monarch's would be capable of such things? If there were no deeper reasons, these experts would definitely not believe it. After all experts had their own pride. These kinds of lowly actions were something that even normal people would disdain to do. But this Lord Evil Monarch had actually committed them. And it was not just one matter. From the age of 12 all the way to 17, this kind of matters happened so often that they were like eating and drinking to him. Just looking at the extensive records of his shameful acts would cause one to feel incomparably disgusted. Because of this, the experts of the three Holy Lands were deeply confused. The accounts of Jun Mo Xie picking fights and instead getting beaten up, whoring, kidnapping, reneging on lost bets and turning to coerce his debtors. The intelligence departments of the three Holy Lands had nearly gone crazy from all the theories they had on the matter. How could there be such a person in this world? Too fecking, incomprehensible. All these matters were like a thick mist on the minds of everyone, causing them to be unable to comprehend his motives. The original Jun Mo Xie and the Jun Mo Xie now were two completely different people, with different characters. How could there be any similarities? To try to analyze the actions of a debauchee using the reasoning and mindset of experts, it would be strange if there were any results from their investigations. Was there a reason for a young boy to be filled with **zul thoughts? Was there a reason for losing while gambling? Were there any logical explanations for a person to lash out and kick at a random person on the street while walking because of a bad mood? However, they couldn't be blamed for being so confused. Even a peak expert that had been reborn from a holy infant and began cultivating in the womb would not be able to reach the saint realm at the age of 19. It would already be very formidable to reach the venerable realm. And that was if there were unlimited resources. But from what they knew, this Jun Mo Xie had even clearly surpassed the Saint Emperor realm. Normal Saint Emperors were unable to even match him in strength. Who would be able to believe that this kind of results could be reached in just a single year? 1 year. How short was that kind of time? To a powerful expert, a year would pass like a fart coming out of their **tt. Furthermore, the most incomprehensible thing was that from our records, this Jun Mo Xie is clearly a **x fiend. But, looking at the girls around him, any one of them is worthy of being called a peerless beauty of a generation. However, every single one of them except Guan Qinghan is still a virgin. This is the most confusing part. Huyen Ao Bo shook his head with amazement, seemingly impressed with how Jun Mo Xie had managed to resist the charms of so many top beauties. From his expectations, it would be more correct if Jun Mo Xie had behaved like **x fiend, forcing himself on all the girls and focusing on engaging in illicit activities all day long. Truthfully, young Master Jun also wished to do just that. But the problem was, the girls at home had formed a strong resistance under the lead of Mei Shuiyan, and he could only be forced to wait bitterly. Palace Lord Huyen. Qiao Ying called out with a red face. This illusory blood-seized palace lord stopped speaking immediately. These kinds of words were all right as small talk between men, but to actually say so much in front of two girls. Ah, cough cough. My apologies. Huyen Ao Bo wiped his forehead nervously. He might not need to care if it were anyone else, but this Qiao Ying was an important person from the Heaven Saint Palace. Huyen Ao Bo could not afford to offend her. How could that Jun Mo Xie be such a person? Miao Xiao Miao was almost at the point where she wanted to cover her ears and stop listening. Just what kind of stuff had these experts of the Holy Lands investigated? Was this still a meeting between the experts of the 4 great factions or a gathering of hoodlums? Surely this was too ridiculous. That is also something that our 3 Holy Lands have been unable to understand. Mo Wu Dao sighed heavily and said, truthfully, we are also quite embarrassed to talk about such matters. But this concerns the evil monarch, and we have no choice but to analyze it in detail. It's indeed a sensitive topic, but it truly cannot be helped. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1085. Shaking the heavens and startling the earth. So those matters are what Jun Mo Xie had done in the past. So what about the current evil monarch? Miao Xiao Miao asked. Although the current Jun Mo Xie no longer visits brothels, he's still overbearing, evil, despicable, shameless, and acts like a hooligan. His words are filthy, and his actions carry no sense of a person from an aristocratic family. Mo Wu Dao snorted. However, this person is ruthless and decisive, arrogant and unyielding, audacious to the extreme, and exceedingly cruel and merciless. Miao Xiao Miao felt as if she had been struck by a bolt of lightning from the heavens. Looking at Miao Xiao Miao, she felt as if this elusive world of immortals' palace lord had gone crazy. Was this really the same person that she saw yesterday? It couldn't be an imposter, right? An overbearing, evil, despicable, shameless hooligan with a foul mouth who lacked any sense of a person from an aristocratic family could actually be ruthless and decisive, arrogant and unyielding, audacious to the extreme, and exceedingly cruel and merciless? Are you sleep-talking? Seniors of the misty illusory manor, Wu Dao naturally knows that my words are contradictory. However, Jun Mo Xie is just this kind of person. Mo Wu Dao said helplessly. That person is a living and walking contradiction, perfectly embodying all those extreme qualities, the number one weirdo under the heavens. This is something that all three of us had agreed on. After saying so much, even Miao Dao, Miao Jian, and the rest were looking at each other speechlessly, completely unable to say anything. All their guesses and expectations from earlier had fallen onto empty air. Was this Jun Mo Xie really the same Mo Jun Xie who was described by the manor lord as a person of graceful and elegant bearings? Well-learned and diligent, soft-hearted, honest and devoted? The more they listened, the more it didn't seem likely. Those were two completely different extremes. Jun Mo Xie once used just his tongue to curse a venerable level expert until the latter vomited blood. Shi Ruochen said with an ugly expression. That venerable level expert was someone that hailed from our supreme golden city. If it weren't for the sake of warning you, our friends from the misty illusory manor, this she would not have told you such an embarrassing thing. Miao Xiao Miao was completely stumped, and her mouth dropped like a wooden chicken. Just how badly cursed was that venerable expert, for a person with such an advanced age and cultivation to end up vomiting blood from it? What if he also starts to curse at me the moment he sees me? Although she currently also had a venerable level cultivation, her mental stability was surely far below those senior experts at the same level. In that case, how would she? Miao Xiao Miao didn't dare to imagine further. He once framed the number one assassin of the Xian continent, Chu Chi Han, so perfectly that our three holy lands ended up chasing the wrong target for nearly half a year. The losses we suffered from that were even more ridiculous. Huyen Ao Bo shook his head repeatedly. The three holy lands had finally understood that they had been set up by Jun Mo Xie, and all of them felt exceedingly embarrassed. He once felled the entire snow-capped peaks, and my brother died because of that. Mo Wu Dao sighed heavily, his eyes filled with pain. He once. The more Miao Xiao Miao heard, the more her heart was shaken with fear. And soon, fear turned into numbness. There were simply too many shocking tales. A hooligan, **X fiend, a shameless bastard, a despicable and ruthless killer. This was the evil monarch that was currently as dazzling as the midday sun. Miao Xiao Miao finally arrived at such a conclusion in her heart. This Jun Mo Xie is a person that deserves to be killed by 1,000 blades. No matter how amazing and talented a person like that was, how could he be compared with my Jun Yi given his rotten character? He isn't even worthy to carry the shoes of my Jun Yi. Miao Xiao Miao snorted lightly. All of a sudden, a pride rose in her heart. In this world, only my Jun Yi is the most perfect. Honorable, kind, honest, well-learned, reliable, magnanimous, courageous, utterly devoted and loyal to boot. After that, while the rest continued to discuss about the evil monarch manor's opening ceremony, Miao Xiao Miao no longer had any interest in listening. Turning around, she dove into her tent. Looking at the bits of light streaming through the cracks of the tent, she could not help but to think about her Jun Yi again. Where are you right now? Do you miss me? A moment later, a light shuffling sound rang out, and a beautiful figure came into view. An intoxicating fragrance filled the tent, rising into her nose. Miao Xiao Miao turned around and saw Qiao Ying coming in dressed in a long white robe. With the sunlight behind her, she seemed like an ethereal fairy. The only thing was that this celestial fairy's face had a slight crease on her brows. Ah, it's Senior Qiao. Miao Xiao Miao hurriedly greeted. To the people of the misty illusory manor, Qiao Ying was a legendary character. Her fame was only below that of the 9 nether young masters. Qiao Ying nodded lightly. Looking at Miao Xiao Miao, her eyes turned gentle and warm as she reached out a hand to stroke her hair. Miao Xiao Miao felt calmness in her heart as she smiled up at her. To her, Qiao Ying was like a dearest elder sister who's taking care of her. It's good to be young. Miss Miao, you need to grasp all the happiness in front of you with everything you have. A hint of bitter smile appeared on the edge of Qiao Ying's mouth. It seemed more like she was speaking to herself than to Miao Xiao Miao. A strange melancholy could be heard in her voice. Seeing Miao Xiao Miao, she seemed to have seen herself in her youth. At that time, she had also been like her, filled with curiosity and hope for the unknown. To have everlasting youth was something that all girls wished for even in their dreams. But when she truly achieved it, she had to ask herself, just how long had she lived in such lonesome solitude? Was it worth it? For a girl, was it really worth it? Qiao Ying had never asked herself such a question, but this time, she had felt a sour feeling in her heart. When everyone was talking about Jun Mo Xie, she had felt somewhat unwilling. But she, who had been used to being by herself, chose to remain silent, only listening quietly. And many thanks for Senior's advice. I will grasp my happiness seriously. Miao Xiao Miao smiled sweetly. After that, she asked curiously. Qiao. Senior, have you met Jun Mo Xie before? If you don't disdain to do so, you can just call me Elder Sister Qiao. Qiao Ying saw that the manner of addressing was a little awkward for both sides, and she smiled and said. So many years of loneliness had caused her to feel a great yearning for kinship. Jun Mo Xie, that youngster. I've actually met him before and quite a few times as well. Qiao Ying said with a deep expression, as if she was reminiscing about something. Is he truly that kind of person? Miao Xiao Miao asked. Perhaps so. Qiao Ying replied uncertainty. I don't know for sure myself, but from the few times I've interacted with him. Jun Mo Xie may be a bit of a defiant person, treating all things indecorously and having a cynical attitude towards life. But he's not necessarily unpardonably wicked, also. As she spoke here, Qiao Ying paused. Also what? Miao Xiao Miao asked. Also. I don't know if it's a misconception, but I seem to feel that to us girls, Jun Mo Xie is a rather dependable man. Qiao Ying said with a slight smile. At least, he is a person who dares to do things and bear responsibility for them. Oh. Miao Xiao Miao was truly surprised. She hadn't expected that she would hear a completely different answer. An answer that was in the other direct extreme this time. When we arrive at Tianfa Forest, you will be able to see him with your own eyes. And at that time, you will be able to form your own impression of him. If you meet the girls around him, you might even understand more for yourself. The things that you hear from third parties should not be taken as the truth since they are not necessarily the whole truth. Qiao Ying smiled lightly as she sat down slowly and hugged her knees. Miao Xiao Miao also sat down beside her, not speaking for a long time. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. And this day was exactly the 15th day of the 6th month. Dawn. As the first rays of light shone from the east, all of a sudden, the heavens and the earth from the direction of Tianfa Forest shook. It was as if all the mountains and rivers of the earth were collapsing at the same time. As if all the volcanoes of the world had erupted at the same time. In an instant, the heavens and earth lost their color. A sudden loud sound rang out, and the people of the 3 holy lands and the misty illusory manor who had been prepared to set out were instantly jolted, scrambling out of their tents as they looked towards the southwest where the sound had come from. At this time, they were only 200 li away from the manor's location. With their speed, it was something that would be covered in just 2 or so hours. Far in the distance, a huge plume of mushroom cloud could be seen rising slowly into the sky, quickly filling the sky and covering the heavens. Following that, the ground shook heavily, and some fist-sized rocks directly sprang up, with some reaching a height of over a zhang. The 1,000 li of dense forest seemed to have encountered a powerful gale that was unprecedented in history. At the same instant, all the trees were bent until their trunks were crooked. Countless thick branches snapped, and loud crackling sounds rang out through the forest as branches flew wildly through the air, disappearing from sight in the blink of an eye. Some small trees were directly uprooted, spinning and smashing through the air. And that gust directly carried all the debris hundreds of li away. Such power and might had clearly exceeded the levels of knowledge of anyone in the world. Only when that violent gale passed, did everything resume its calmness. Everyone that had witnessed the scene could not help but stare dumbly at the people around them, their faces filled with shock and fear. When they looked up again, that huge dark cloud above Tianfa Forest had already disappeared without a trace. The sky was a deep and clear blue. That violent gale had clearly dismissed all the clouds in the sky. Clear skies for 10,000 li. Looking at this endless expanse of blue in front of their eyes, and the patch of forest that had turned bare in an instant, everyone felt a heavy feeling in their hearts. Which of the people that came this time were not influential characters that could command the winds and clouds of the world? They had witnessed even the grand establishment ceremonies of large countries several times, but no one had ever seen anything like this before. Even before reaching the site, they could already feel their hearts palpitating with awe. Gasping with shock, Miao Zhan, who had the deepest cultivation among the group, instantly raised his hand and roared. Everyone, prepare to move out immediately. We must reach Tianfa within 2 hours. 2 hours later, the crowd finally managed to rush to the site. However, the scene before their eyes was so shocking that they didn't dare believe their eyes. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1086. Too arrogant. This place was the old address of Li Ju Tian, who had been a formidable figure among the 8 great masters, the Shui Han Manor. It was a location that was surrounded by a wall of mountains and facing the Tianfa Forest. It was easy to attack and defend and could be said to be a land with natural geographical fortifications. But now, apart from the 2 outermost mountains that were like a pair of sturdy stone doors, the dense forest surrounding it and the other mountains had completely disappeared without a trace. A huge area of 10,000 zhang now appeared on this newly created flatland. The ground here was incomparably smooth, and even a fly would slip if it landed on this place. Right at the very center was a strange and majestic manor. No, this could no longer be called a manor. It could be directly called a castle. Furthermore, it could be called the most elegant and majestic castle under the heavens. Any random brick on the walls around the castle was at least 2 zhang wide, 3 zhang tall, and 1 zhang thick. A single brick would most likely weigh over several tens of thousand jin. Even a saint-level expert might not necessarily be able to break a brick like that easily. And the entire outer walls of this castle were built with this kind of bricks. The wall was over 10 zhang high, and a bluish thing that seemed to be filled with fine hairs could be seen on the outside of the walls, radiating a dazzling color under the sunlight. With a single look, it was obvious that those prickly things were all exceedingly poisonous. Anyone below Sky Xian would not be able to leap over the walls in one jump. They would surely need to step up against the wall to borrow the force to continue. But if they did that, they would have borrowed themselves a ticket to the gates of the netherworld. All kinds of colorful flags could be seen all around this flatland. The flagpoles were all made from towering trees that were at least over 100 years old, and they were clearly exceedingly sturdy. The flags themselves were tens of zhang wide, and flapping noisily in the wind. Not mentioning the other things, just the sight of those walls and the flags was already enough to emanate a domineering aura. Far in the distance, the entire mountain was filled with people waiting for their turn to offer their congratulations in this grand establishment ceremony. With just a rough look, one could see hundreds of thousands of people. Everyone had a look of extreme fear and respect as they looked at the vast empty grounds, the tall walls, and the majestic flags. This evil monarch is truly worthy of his fame as legendary character like the midday sun. What a grand stroke! Miao Zhan sighed in a heartfelt manner. This old man had lived for so long, but this is still the first time I've seen such a grand sight. Far away, the main castle stood firmly over 100 meters tall. When one looked up at it, they would feel an indescribable sense of wanting to bow down to it. It was as if they were looking at a primordial giant of the ancient ages, standing still in a solemn manner, looking down upon all life. Although it didn't move nor spoke, the aura itself was still enough to cull the world. The blood-red sun rose over the mountain. As the sun rose in the east, and the first rays touched the castle, a loud hong sound rang out, and 2 several zhang tall bronze gates began to open. 2 huge doors slid apart, and this process was actually surprisingly silent. Miao Zhan and the rest once again displayed looks of amazement on their faces. Because from just this small detail, it was obvious to see the immaculate level of mechanical skills the people of the evil monarch manor possessed. Another sharp sound rang out, and a fireworks rocket flew into the sky before exploding in a shower of sparks. With that explosion, the official signal that heralded the establishment of the evil monarch manor was sounded. At that moment, no one knew that this rocket had also drawn open the curtains to the start of the unification of the pugilistic world that had been in chaos for over 10,000 years. As the loud bang rang out, several thousand white, peak 9th level flying Xian beasts soared into the sky together, charging several hundred zhang into the sky, rapidly forming into a sword formation. The tip of the sword was pointed straight forward, while the hilt was positioned right before the evil monarch manor. After that, there were no more movements. The several thousand flying Xian beasts simply maintained the same altitude, and remained in the same position like a singular entity. That scene was as if the evil monarch's castle was a primordial giant, wielding a great sword that split the heavens apart. A sea of cheers instantly soared into the skies. After a long time, silence. A light but stern voice rang out. The voice was seemingly effortless, but it somehow rang out in everyone's ears. Even with the loud cheers going on, Everyone could hear the voice clearly. That voice was from a Saint Emperor expert. At least a Saint Emperor of the 3rd level. Mo Wu Dao's face changed as he turned to look at Shi Ruo Chen for confirmation. Truthfully, Mo Wu Dao already had the answer in his heart long ago. The only thing was that he still didn't dare to believe and wasn't willing to believe it. He only wished that he could get an answer that denied this. However, he was bound to be disappointed. Shi Ruo Chen's gaze were sunken, and his expression was similarly heavy. It wasn't clear what he was thinking about. But he still nodded after a long time. Following that, the stern voice rang out again. The 15th day of the 6th month. The establishment ceremony of the evil monarch manor. Heavens and earth rejoice. Everyone, today is the first time that our evil monarch manor has opened itself to the outside world. In this world, another superpower that could command the winds and clouds has been added. Many thanks to everyone for coming to attend the opening ceremony. Truly boastful and conceited. Miao Xiao Miao pouted and said. She'd seen arrogant people before, but she'd never seen anyone so wildly arrogant before, to claim the moment they opened their mouths, that they were another superpower that could command the winds and clouds. They didn't even speak a few words in modesty and directly announced their power. There's no longer any need for them to be humble right now. Mo Wu Dao said with a slight smile. Normally, if a newly established faction were so arrogant, I'm afraid they would have instantly provoked the public's rage and destroyed. But the evil monarch needs to display a powerful stance from the start. If he acted humbly, he might instead be taken lightly by the world. Mo Wu Dao's mental state was truly stable. In just a mere instant, he'd already recovered his calm and managed to make an accurate judgment. All the experienced old fellows nodded along with his words. Because, among the people coming to offer their congratulations, there were also other superpowers like the 3 Holy Lands. The evil monarch manor was announcing their position in the pugilistic world, and the OG superpowers of the 3 Holy Lands naturally had to attend. Although on the surface, they were coming to offer their congratulations, but their intentions were definitely unkind. Thus, when the evil monarch declared such words, they had already become an arrow loosed from the bow, without any chances of turning back anymore. They could not show any weaknesses no matter what. The moment any weaknesses were exposed, it would mean that they could be bullied. If they couldn't be considered as a leader of the pugilistic world, wouldn't today's meet just be a grand joke? While the 3 Holy Lands would not choose to directly stop the ceremony at this time, they would still try to disrupt this event, preventing it from proceeding smoothly, as much as possible. No matter what, they would definitely do something. Right now, the words of this master of ceremonies directly represented the entire evil monarch manor. Although these two sides seemed to be indifferent with each other, but they were deeply opposed to each other in their bones. The 3 Holy Lands had already made their move, and the evil monarch manor had also displayed an absolute strong stance. That also meant that the evil monarch manor needed to completely crush the 3 Holy Lands' schemes with absolute might now that they had said those words. That was the only way for them to maintain their stance. If that didn't happen, it would be difficult to guarantee the success of the opening ceremony. There was only the option of going all out. So although the words of this master of ceremonies right now seemed like a declaration that was even somewhat too arrogant, it was actually the equivalence of a formal declaration of war against the 3 Holy Lands. It was no wonder that Shi Ruo Chen, Mo Wu Dao, and the rest's faces were so ugly. Miao Zhan and the others also managed to understand the overall situation after a bit of thought. Sighing, they thought in their hearts. So it's like that. There are tens of thousands of evils in this world. But I am the monarch. None shall defy the law of the monarch. Right now, we would like to announce to all the friends of the pugilistic world. From henceforth, please keep in mind to leave some face for the evil monarch in all areas. If the monarch is enraged, millions of corpses shall pile like a mountain, and blood will flow like an ocean. The master of ceremonies' voice was exceedingly solemn, carrying a strange calmness and determination. Every word was filled with frigid killing intent. Although it was a joyous occasion, his words were like a rain of blood, pouring atop the crowd. Towards the end, the sentence had directly ended in a threat. This was the same as saying, "If you give me face, everyone shall live well together. But if you don't, I will destroy you." Those words were exceedingly domineering and arrogant, and looks of rage appeared on many people's faces. Threatening all the heroes of the world on the same day that the faction was established? Weren't they thinking too highly of themselves? No matter how amazing your evil monarch manner is, could you go against the entire world? Did you think that you're another nether first young master? Keek keek. Up in the castle, Solitary Eagle was laughing with glee like an old eagle that had just caught a plump rabbit. Feng Wan Yun. That fellow. I really gotta hand it to him. He actually got so much into the role of the master of ceremonies that he's becoming a butcher. This old man has no choice but to be convinced. If this old man was asked to take over that role, and even if this old man were beaten to death, I really wouldn't be able to do it. It turned out that the exceedingly arrogant master of ceremonies this time was precisely the hurricane swordsman Feng Wan Yun. Only that madman that was as cold as a block of ice was capable of saying such overbearing and hateful words without even needing a script. The noises at the bottom began to grow once again. At this moment, that infuriating master of ceremonies finally stopped talking. Evil monarchs. Manor establishment ceremony will begin now. As his words landed, a huge blood-red flag unfurled and rose up magnificently at the top of the castle. As the deep red sun rose behind the flag, an ocean of blood was raised over the entire castle. There was only one gigantic word atop the flag. Evil. This huge word shone with a dazzling gold, and even normal people several hundred li away would be able to see it clearly. The moment the flag was raised, and the huge word appeared, everyone felt an exceedingly strange feeling in their hearts. As expected of the evil monarch. This was really too motherfucking evil. And too motherfucking arrogant. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1087. Extremely grand stroke. It was a feeling that could cause one to suffocate. There were clearly tens of zhang to even 1,000 zhang of distance between them, but the crowd could still clearly feel the frigid killing intent that gripped tightly around their hearts. These people were like the evil demons that had been freshly released from hell. There were clearly only a few hundred people, but they moved as a single entity. Apart from the action of their feet landing, there were no other unnecessary movements at all. Just the few hundred people had managed to release an intense aura as if it was a great army of 1 million. Every single one of these people was a god of slaughter. These people were all dressed in clean snow-white clothes. The only difference between them was the golden lines along their sleeves. Some of these golden lines were thick, and some were thin. Some had 2 lines, and some had 3. The ones at the center even directly had a tiny golden sword embroidered onto their sleeves. From the looks of it, this was a uniform designed by the evil monarch manor. They were divided into 2 groups, with exactly 149 people in each group. When the last person marched out of the city gate, they stepped out neatly, lining the two sides of the road and opening a path. Following that, they spoke together in perfect synchronization. All esteemed guests are invited to come inside. Miao Zhan had originally been watching from afar with a calm expression, but in the instant he saw those 298 men, his eyes grew wide and his jaws dropped to the ground. Mo Wu Dao, Shi Ruo Chen, and Huyan Ao Bo's faces also turned exceedingly ugly. What's wrong? Seeing that the atmosphere was somewhat strange, Miao Xiao Miao turned and asked Miao Dao. How is this possible? The troop that came out to welcome the guests, even the ones with the lowest cultivation, are at the third level saint level. Miao Dao also sucked in a deep breath of cold air. His voice even shook a little as he widened his eyes in disbelief. Among them, there are over 70 Saint Emperor experts, and over 100 of them are peak 4th level saints. Such a level of strength is simply unbelievable. Furthermore, these are still just the people that came out to welcome the guests. Feck. This daddy is going crazy. How could such a thing be real? If it were just one saint-level expert, Miao Dao would naturally not place them in his eyes at all. Even if it was 10 or 8, it wouldn't be too much of a big deal. But to have so many as to form them into an army, this was simply too terrifying. Hearing this, Miao Xiao Miao exclaimed aloud and hurriedly covered her mouth. A total of 70 Saint Emperors and over 200 4th-level saints standing still like regular guards to welcome the guests. Even the misty illusory manner would be hard-pressed to come up with such a grand formation. Right now, the only thing left to see is the strength of the evil Monarch Manor's core members. Miao Jian sucked in a deep breath and calmed himself down forcefully. Behind him, Mo Wu Dao and the rest also calmed themselves down. Following that, it was Jun Xie, Third Master Jun, who came out personally dressed in a light green robe, to receive the guests. With Jun Xie's status as an important member of the evil Monarch Manor, it could already be said to be giving the crowd a lot of face. Miao Dao and the rest exchanged a glance and nodded. Let's go. The group got up together and walked over. All of a sudden, a bright voice rang out. Xikong and Yi of the Xikong family congratulates the evil monarch on the grand establishment of the evil Monarch Manor. We bring a stock of 7-colored rainbow jade orchid and 10,000 yang of gold as an expression of our good wishes. Following that, a stalwart man walked out from the crowd, carrying an intricate brocade box. Jun Xie hurried forward and shook the man's hands warmly as he smiled. Brother Xikong is too polite. It's good as long as you turn up. There's no need to bring anything. Men, quickly bring Brother Xikong in to rest. Serve over our best tea as well. Xikong and Yi laughed happily and nodded, following a white-robed girl in. Duanmu family's Duanmu. Chow. 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 Fan congratulates evil. 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 Mo. Mo. Monarch, on his grand establishment. The moment this person spoke, everyone almost spat out whatever was in their mouths. So it turned out that this was a stutterer. However, no one dared to laugh aloud. Because there would only be one person who would dare to stand out here and stutter like that. The Duanmu family's Duanmu Chao fan. Jun Xie did not wait for him to finish speaking, and hurriedly went up to him with a broad smile. Brother Fried Rice. You're here as well. We're all family. There's no need to be so polite. You must have been tired after traveling such a long journey. Quickly go in and rest. Duanmu Chao fan rolled his eyes and said, Brother Wu Yi, I I haven't reported my GGI gift. What's there to report? Jun Xie pulled him in impatiently. By the time you finished reporting it, the sky would have turned dark. The two men were already very familiar with each other, and there were no speaking barriers between them. As Duan Muchao Fan struggled stubbornly, he was pulled inside by someone else. After some time, one could still hear him stuttering in the distance. I need to re-report. Following closely behind that, the crowd all sucked in a large breath of air. Because a huge wave of meat had suddenly appeared right at the front, rippling energetically and filling everyone's sights. This fatty could no longer be described with the word fat. He could only be described with a ball of meat. A huge ball of meat. This gigantic meatball wobbled forward slowly. With every step taken, the crowd felt as if they were sitting atop a small boat, while the rippling fats were the mighty ocean, vast and boundless. Miao Xiao Miao's petite little mouth opened to its extreme, and she could not close it no matter how much she tried. It wasn't that she had never seen a fat person before. But this was really the first time she had seen such a fat fatty. How could a human be fat to such an extent? This was simply too exaggerated. At the same time, she also discovered an amazing phenomenon. Wherever this fatty went, the crowd would automatically open a path for him, allowing him to go first. Furthermore, all of them had looks of great respect on their faces. Many people even squeezed to the front just to have a chance to speak a single word to this fatty. After exchanging a single word, they would hurriedly back away with looks of content and glory. Who is that person? Miao Xiao Miao could not imagine how a fatty like that was actually able to hold such great prestige, having so much influence. This was simply too strange. What was so attractive about this fatty that would make one laugh until their stomachs ached until they couldn't eat for 3 days? And the most ridiculous part was that this fatty didn't even seem to have much strength. His cultivation should at most be around silver Xian. Could it be that this was a peak-level expert whose cultivation was so profound that he could already retract his aura perfectly into his body? If that weren't the case, it would be hard to fathom how this person could win so much respect from the heroes of the world. Miss Miao seems to be wondering how that person could receive so much respect even though his cultivation is so low. This person is the #1 richest man in the world right now. He's the owner of Tianxiang City's aristocratic hall, Tang Yuan, and also the best and closest friend of the evil monarch Jun Mo Xie. I guess you can say, when a man attains the Dao, even his pets ascend to heaven. Wu Dao said with a slight sneer. A rich man, and the closest friend of the evil monarch. Miao Xiao Miao mumbled with disbelief. Isn't it just some money? What's so amazing about that? Money can enslave ghosts and even summon the gods. In a world like Xian continent where strength was enough to rule the world, it might not mean much for a person to have 10.000 yang of gold, or even 100.000 yang of gold. But if it were 1.000.000 yang of gold, or even an amount that far exceeds that until it's an incalculable amount, that person would become the most powerful person in the world. Even if he doesn't have a single shred of Xian Qi, he would still be the most dangerous person in the world. Wu Dao nodded. As the saying goes, 1 yang of silver is also a temptation. 10.000 yang of gold is also a temptation. The more one has, the more temptation there is. For most people, it is naturally easy to remain unmoved in front of 10 silvers. But what about a truly astronomical amount? One has to know, a man without money is no man at all. To have lots of money is also a kind of ability, an extreme level of ability. Miao Xiao Miao nodded in a somewhat confused manner. At this time, the richest man under the heavens had finally managed to make his way to Third Master Jun, whilst panting heavily. Slapping his tummy, he smiled in a nauseating manner that caused Miao Xiao Miao's face to turn green. One had to say that the expression on that fatty's face right now was simply too disgusting. Third uncle, long time no see, hee hee. Third uncle hee hee hee. The fatty wiped his sweat and said in a fawning manner. Jun Wu Yi furrowed his brows deeply. Oh fatty, what happened to you? Didn't Mo Xie help you lose weight not long ago? How many days has it been? You've actually. Third Master Jun didn't know what to say. Judging by the looks of this fatty now, he'd definitely exceeded even his highest weight record once again. Third uncle, there's no need to worry about me, this little one has already learnt to accept my weight. Tang Yuan panted heavily as his fats wobbled freely. Why you? AI, you've indeed accepted your weight very well. Third Master Jun was completely speechless. Waving a hand, he signaled for somebody to drag this fatty away. Standing in front of this fatty, a tall, strong man like Jun Wu Yi was completely blocked. This pressure was truly impressive. After speaking, Tang Yuan raised his head and puffed out his chest, causing all the fats on his body to shake dangerously. After that, he roared at the top of his lungs. Tianxiang City's aristocratic halls. Tang Yuan congratulates the evil monarch on the grand establishment of the evil monarch manor, and offers a gift of 100 million yuan gold. The moment those words rang out, the entire area turned completely silent. 100 million yuan gold. This fatty didn't bring anything else. No rare treasures or precious heavenly herbs, nothing. Except money. Gold. 100 million yuan gold. This number was no longer just an astronomical sum, this was an amount of money that 99.999999% of people in this world would never even dare to dream about. Just the weight of the gold was probably enough to crush 100,000 people to death. Miao Xiao Miao's body shook, and she completely could not speak a single word. This fatty is truly rich, truly too filthy rich. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1088. The First Confrontation between Jun Mo Xie and Wu Dao. This is too much. Jun Wu Yi said seriously after recovering from the initial shock. Not at all. Not at all. Tang Yuan waved his hand generously. Third uncle, I can do nothing but earn money, and now I do have some considerable savings. He then lowered his voice and said secretively. Let me tell you, third uncle. Do you still remember that guy who tried to boast about his wealth in Tianxiang City? I was so angry that I called for 2 carriages of gold and stoned him to death on the high street with gold. Come. Welcome in our great manager Tang Yuan and serve him with the best tea. Before Tang Yuan could finish, Jun Wu Yi had already projected his voice and given the order. He could not tolerate how inappropriate Tang Yuan was despite being one of the most powerful people on the continent currently. Third uncle, I haven't finished yet. Listen to me. Tang Yuan tried to struggle a bit as he was so proud of his heroic deeds and couldn't wait to share. Get lost. Jun Wu Yi kicked onto his humongous B** talk. Tang Yuan screamed in pain but didn't budge at all. His B** talk was so flabby that it was like cotton absorbing all the force. It seemed that being fat could also be advantageous. As everyone watched him, Tang Yuan grumbled and massaged his B** talk. He then waved his hand again casually. 4 men immediately responded to his gesture by rushing forward and laying out an object. It was a foldable soft couch. Everyone was dumbfounded as he made himself comfortable on it before waving his hand again and ordering. Show me the way to third young master Jun Dang. So tiring to walk for so long. He had spoken softly with Jun Wu Yi, but Miao Xiao Miao was a solid venerable. How could she not have heard it? She was dazed by what she had heard. Stoning people to death with gold, this fat man, how can I even describe him? She finally forced close her mouth from the absurd scene as Tang Yuan was carried inside on the soft couch. She couldn't help but comment very honestly. Now I see how is he so fat. Everyone counted that Tang Yuan only walked on his own for less than 10 steps. And now he was complaining that it was too tiring. No wonder he was so fat. Jun Wu Yi wiped off some cold sweat as he came to the resolution that he was going to remind Mo Xie again to help Tang Yuan slim down again. Tang Yuan's body would not be able to lift his own load if he continued to put on weight. It was a matter of life and death. Who knew why he didn't try to boost his own health with all the magical herbs he could afford? As Jun Wu Yi pondered on, a high-pitched boy's voice suddenly could be heard. Unfailing as the sun that rises from the east, I am undefeatable. Conquer the world in no time and unify everyone for centuries. The Dongfang family has come to congratulate. The voice, the slogan, it was definitely the cousin. It was Jun Mo Xie's little cousin Dongfang Xiao Huai. Or perhaps he should be called Dongfang Bubai. Right after Tang Yuan, it was this naughty little boy. They are giving me a headache. Jun Wu Yi complained silently. But he was lucky this time that Dongfang Xiao Huai was not here alone. He could see Dongfang Wenqing walking over with a smile. As Jun Wu Yi welcomed the Dongfang family warmly and ordered servants to bring them in, a sudden wave of coldness and washed over him. It was as if he were back on the peak of the snowy mountains. It had to be the master of the blizzard Silver City leading several experts of the city to send over their well wishes. There were no more incoming guests for a while and Jun Wu Yi busily attended to those that had arrived. Tianxiang Empire has come to congratulate the grand opening ceremony of the evil Monarch Manor. We present you Tiannan City as the gift. The ambassador from Tianxiang was Li Yuran, who had been Jun Mo Xie's archenemy. And the gift they had presented was another shock for everyone. The god of wealth, Tang Yuan, gave 100 million gold and it was breathtaking enough. Who could have imagined that the Tianxiang Empire gave an entire city? It was more stunning. Only Mo Wu Dao and a few other well-informed individuals were not surprised. This move by the Tianxiang city was very strategic. After the evil Monarch Manor was established, the de facto leader of the Tiannan city would no longer be the crown of the Tianxiang Empire. Furthermore, the city was too far away from Tianxiang city, so there was nothing the emperor could do even if he wanted to. But the situation would immediately turn the other way around if they gave it to Jun Mo Xie. With the current capabilities of the Jun family, they would naturally protect Tiannan City from any form of attack or invasion. Tiannan City might even become an impregnable city with absolute peace. More importantly, the city would turn into a strong line of defense that ensured the stability of the southern parts of the empire forever. In this manner, although it was the presentation of a gift on the surface, it actually settled a huge uncertainty factor forever. They were receiving a huge benefit with a simple favor. How could Jun Wu Yi not be aware of their hidden agenda? But considering that Tianxiang had been his home country, Jun Wu Yi could only smile helplessly and ask people to bring Li Yuran in. However, the next person really made the color on Jun Wu Yi's face change. Mo Wu Dao from the elusive Word of Immortals has come to congratulate the grand opening of the evil monarch manor. It was a very startling line indeed. Everyone knew that the three Holy Lands would definitely send someone to attend the event. But no one expected the master of the elusive Word of Immortals himself to be here. Instantaneously, there was only dead silence. Shi Ruochen from the Supreme Golden City. Hu Yen Ao Bo from the Illusory Blood Sea. Miao Zhan from the Misty Illusory Manor. Has come to congratulate the grand opening of the evil monarch manor. Three more voices sounded off simultaneously, finding their way into the ears of everyone present. They were not loud and actually sounded gentle, but they didn't fail petrifying everyone. The leaders of the manor and the three Holy Lands arrived at the same time. Thank you so much. Please come inside and enjoy some tea. Jun Moxie carefully raised his voice but kept his humble posture. Wait a minute. Please allow me to say something. May I ask where your manor lord, the evil monarch, is? Mo Wu Dao asked calmly. I think we have shown enough sincerity to be here by ourselves. But your manor lord refuses to appear. Isn't it a bit too inappropriate? Does your manor lord show no respect to all these heroes of the world? Ever since the arrival of the first group of guests, the evil monarch, Jun Mo Xie, hadn't appeared. Previously, most of them were his friends, so it was still understandable. But now, the guests were the leaders of the most powerful organizations in existence. Their status were high and almost on par with the evil monarch. Disregarding them was sort of impolite. Upon hearing what Mo Wu Dao had said, those families affiliated with the three holy were immediately stirred up. There was close to 10,000 of them making a commotion at the same time. After finishing his words, Mo Wu Dao waited in silence and did nothing else. He looked totally emotionless. His words sounded doubtful but not in a very challenging way. But hidden within was an extremely deadly trap. He had long been aware that Jun Mo Xie didn't even show up until now. He only brought up this matter at this point of time so that it would become a deadly arrow pointing at Jun Mo Xie. If Jun Mo Xie continued to refuse showing up, with a few more words and the help of the family supportive of them to stir up more sentiments, the newly established evil monarch manor would most likely find itself against the entire world. But if Jun Mo Xie did appear afterwards, it would seem that Jun Mo Xie was submissive. He didn't even appear to welcome his friends but showed up for the leaders of the three Holy Lands. Wouldn't this mean that he was fearful? In this case, the status of the three Holy Lands would be lifted tremendously, surpassing that of the evil monarch manor. At the same time, it would undermine the bond between the evil monarch manor and its allies. Everyone expected the three Holy Lands to challenge Jun Mo Xie on this ceremony. But no one could have guessed that it happened as soon as they turned up. It was clearly a good demonstration of the strategy of ambushing an enemy. Before long, a casual voice suddenly became audible. Mo Wu Dao, what are you implying? Is it that you are more noble than the other heroes that I must welcome you personally? The evil monarch manor treats all heroes of the world equally. I respect them and naturally won't deliberately make your life difficult. But what are you trying to achieve by saying this now? The voice was penetrating and clear but sounded as if it used minimal effort. However, it easily covered over all the rowdiness and forced itself into everyone's head. That's skillful. Miao Zhan's eyes flashed with a surprised glow and exclaimed softly to himself. The speaker had a very high Xian cultivation, demonstrated by his voice covering over the noisy crowd. However, Miao Zhan was quite certain that he could do it as well. The more admirable was the way he responded with his words. It was a quick-witted response that turned the tide back against Wu Dao and even glorified all the heroes of the world. It recognized that every hero was equal to the master of the elusive world of immortals. It was indeed very satisfying to hear. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1089. Boundless luck with women. Besides, you said that it was inappropriate? I'm afraid I can't agree with your words. Although I, Jun Mo Xie, am the evil monarch, I'm still a person of the Jun family. The person receiving guests at the door right now is my third uncle. My third uncle is the famed blood general, and his status in the family is even much higher than mine. With my third uncle personally coming out to receive the guests, it is already a great show of respect to the heroes of the world. Wu Dao, could it be that to you, a senior of the older generation has a lower status than a junior? As the palace lord of the elusive world of immortals, to think that you still have the face to say such vile and unfilial words. The clear voice ended here, but the noise from the crowd had also calmed down completely. This sentence had not only made his stance clear, he had even managed to return a blow back to Wu Dao. Wu Dao had taken the chance to attack Jun Mo Xie with a difficult question, but his attack had been dissolved instantly and returned with the same method. Wu Dao's skill in maligning people could already be said to be among the best in the world. But who would have thought that this evil monarch would be even more amazing? Truly, there's always a taller mountain behind the tallest mountain. Miao Xiao Miao nearly burst out in laughter. At the same time, she thought in her heart that this fellow's skill was rather similar to her Jun Ye's smooth ability to talk. The only thing was that he was, of course, not comparable to her Jun Yi. Li Yuran, who had already been escorted inside, shook his head with a bitter smile when he heard those words. If it were him who were faced with this difficult situation, he would definitely have chosen the method of explaining himself and would never use such an extreme method of retorting head-on. Although Li Yuran's character was venomous, ruthless, and daring, his subconscious was actually more cautious. Before obtaining success, he would always consider failure first. The first thought in his mind would always be self-preservation, before anything else. But Jun Mo Xie, on the other hand, was completely fearless. The two's personalities were as different as the north and south, so their approaches to a problem would naturally be very different as well. Wu Dao laughed lightly, seemingly not minding at all. The evil monarch has a sharp tongue as expected. How truly admirable. From this sentence, it seemed as if the matter had come to a temporary stop, but in truth, there seemed to be a hint of mockery in his words. The palace lord of the elusive world of immortals is also impressive. Ah, just a random sentence from you had been enough to force this seat to speak. Although those words are forceful to the extreme and don't seem to have any social ethics or morality to speak of, it's already asking too much of you. Humans are imperfect after all, so this seat can understand. Jun Mo Xie laughed and said, his voice disappearing. This sentence was also a blow back at Wu Dao, saying that he was seeking his own humiliation and could not be blamed on others. Furthermore, although the words, no social ethics or morality to speak of, seemed to be said in graciousness, it was in essence a direct shot at Wu Dao, calling him a vile beast right to his face. In this age, was there anyone who didn't know social ethics? Truly, only vile beasts would not understand such stuff. Of course, the crowd was able to understand the meaning behind those words very clearly. However, no one dared to say it out loud. The evil monarch may be able to disregard the palace lord of the elusive world of immortals. But would they dare? Although Jun Mo Xie had just called the rest of them equals to the three holy lands and everyone felt good about it internally. But the crowd were obviously not idiots. Would they really dare to think that they were equals with the three holy lands? Although the two had only exchanged 2 sentences from start to end, it had been enough to leave the crowd with endless thoughts. Everyone could feel that there would definitely be a huge show to watch later today. High up in the castle, Mei Shuayan sat silently beside a tall window, looking down. All of a sudden, she muttered lightly. That lovable-looking girl in yellow with the misty illusory manner should be our little sister Xiao Miao, right? Young Master Jun, who had just emerged from a round of sharp-tongued battle with the palace lord of the elusive world of immortals, rubbed his nose in a guilty manner, and coughed twice dryly. NN. Where? Dugu Xiao Yi. Han Yen Meng and Kur rushed over excitedly and looked towards where Mei Shuayan was pointing. You 3 little lasses. Mei Shuayan smiled bitterly, but still pointed for them to see. Not bad indeed. She definitely looks pretty. Dugu Xiao Yi pouted her mouth cutely and stared unblinkingly. Miao Xiao Miao was dressed in a long, pale yellow dress, and her expression was calm. Although they were too far to see her face clearly, the grace and elegant bearings that emanated from her could already be seen, setting her apart from the crowd. There might be no need to mind the others, but we need to receive this Miss Miao ourselves, Mei Shuayan said in a light voice. Otherwise, young Master Jun will think that we're a bunch of jealous women and get angry at us. Qing Han, let's go down together. Guan Qing Han shot a glance at Jun Mo Xie and nodded. Jun Mo Xie rubbed his nose with a bitter smile. Would I dare to get angry at you all? If you don't get angry at me, I'll be burning incense and thanking the gods. Young Master Jun actually wanted to get that fellow Tang Yuan up here initially. However, while that fatty was being carried up, he happened to look down. Seeing how high up they were, he became scared and hurriedly scrambled back down. Very few of these guests came along with the women of their family. Miao Xiao Miao naturally felt rather lonely and uncomfortable in a sea of men. After being greeted by Jun Wu Yi, she followed behind a few white-robed youths. As she looked up, there was actually an exceedingly huge hall at the front. This hall was wide enough to easily accommodate a few thousand tables, with a large space left empty in the center. There was even a tall stage on the opposite end. While Miao Xiao Miao was observing the setup, a shadow suddenly flashed, and her eyes blurred. 2 girls had abruptly appeared at the doors of the huge hall and were smiling at her. The colors of their dresses were not much different from the rest, but even as they simply stood there, they gave others a feeling that they were different from the others. Whether it was the style, the bearing, or the attitude, they stood out starkly from the rest. In terms of looks, they were heavenly beauties of a generation. The one on the left was standing still in a simple manner, but there were the bearings of a strong leader on her. Although she was smiling faintly, she gave others a feeling that she could not be taken lightly, a person who was high up in the air, looking down up the world. The person on the right also had a slight smile on her face, but she looked cold and aloof, and seemed to be exceedingly out of reach. Just looking at her, one would feel as if they were looking at a celestial fairy from another dimension who could not be approached. One was like a proud peony, graceful and elegant, while the other was like an ice lotus at the peak of a snowy mountain, set apart from the world and untainted by worldly filth. The moment these 2 girls appeared, even those old Holy Land experts who had lived for countless years could not help but stare in a dazed manner. Such levels of beauties should be something that only belong in the heavens. Miao Xiao Miao had always been confident in her own pure and exceptional looks. And even when she heard Mo Junyi praising his wife to the heavens, she still felt a deep feeling of unresignation in her heart even though she hadn't said anything at the time. She didn't dare express those thoughts to him in fear that the other would think her to be a calculative and jealous girl. But in her heart, she did not believe that the elder sister whom she had never seen before would possibly be more pretty than her. After all, who could in the Xian continent that was clouded with filth could reach a level of beauty that was comparable to the misty illusory manor? Miao Xiao Miao could not be blamed for having this kind of arrogant view. The people in the misty illusory manor had always felt that they were superior to the people of Xian continent. Being born in that kind of environment, it was no wonder that she also had the same thinking. But after seeing these two girls now, she could not help but to feel a deep sense of shame in her heart. Although she was also a peak-level beauty, but how could she be mentioned alongside these two girls? The moment this thought appeared, another thought appeared in her heart. Since there is this kind of beauty in Xian continent, then, if the elder sister that Junyi had described was also real, what should I do? Miao Xiao Miao felt her heart drop, and an uncontrollable pain rose in her chest. A sense of deep self-pity birthed, overflowing on her brows. But what she didn't know was that when Mei Shuayan and Guan Qinghan saw her, they had also been deeply shocked. In these days, with all the girls living together, one could truly say that their lodge was a place where all kinds of different beauties could be found together. The graceful and poised Shuayan, cold and proud Qinghan, playful and adorable Xiao Yi, lively Yan Meng, gentle and quiet Qian Sun, kind and amiable Kuo, restrained and composed Ling Meng. There was practically one of every characteristic here. Sometimes, Mei Shuayan would even wonder to herself if that baddie was actually intending to capture all the top beauties of different characteristics and bring them into his harem, netting the best of everything in this world together. But after seeing Miao Xiao Miao today, she realized that Jun Mo Xie's grand collection had not ended yet. A strong yet refined girl. Soft on the outside but strong on the inside, this kind of girl was truly rare. Especially that pitiable look of pain between her brows was even more shocking. Venerable Mei, I trust you have been well since we last met. Mo Wu Dao smiled lightly and took the initiative to speak. At this, Miao Xiao Miao gasped lightly in her heart. So this is the current lord of Tian Fa's ferocious land? Venerable Mei? I heard that she's also the woman of that evil monarch. Seeing her today, she's indeed a peerless beauty. But who is that beside her? Looks like that evil monarch is truly blessed with boundless luck with women. But what Miao Xiao Miao didn't know was that she was also one of those women that evil monarch had boundless luck with. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1090. Austere Heart Orchid. Mo Wu Dao. You really never change. Still as pretentious as before. You clearly hate me to death in your heart, but you still manage to express a deep look of kinship in your eyes. Mo Wu Dao. Among all the pretentious fellows that the Xian continent has witnessed over the past several thousand years, you are undoubtedly the first. Mei Shuayan looked coldly at him and said in a bland manner. Venerable Mei is still so direct with your words. Our four lands are actually the same body, joined in the same purpose of opposing the foreign invaders. After fighting alongside each other for so many years, Venerable Mei's words are a little disheartening. Mo Wu Dao sighed heavily and said. I remember back then. Just what kind of person was this? The three holy lands and Tian Fa were already at an inconciliable level where they could not share the same sky together. But he still had the face to say, 4 lands are the same body, joined in the same purpose. How could those words even leave his tongue? Mei Shuai-yen rolled her eyes, no longer bothering to reply to him. Against such a shameless fellow, it wouldn't mean anything no matter what she said. Rather than wasting her breath bickering on him, she turned and smiled lightly at Miao Xiao Miao. This little sister should be the misty illusory manners little princess. Miss Miao, right? Yes. Nice to meet you, Senior Mei. Miao Xiao Miao froze for a moment and hurriedly replied. Although Miao Xiao Miao was the little princess of the misty illusory manor, her status and position were not worth anything compared with the person before her. Venerable Mei had held up the entire Tianfa forest by herself for hundreds of years. Although her cultivation at that time was not high and was possibly even weaker than the current her, she had not allowed that to stop her from protecting Tianfa forest at all. This was a true legendary character, and a true leader of a ferocious land. This was made even more amazing now that this legendary character had been revealed to actually be a woman. Her courage and leadership qualities were even more admirable. Miss Miao is too courteous. If Miss Miao doesn't mind, you can just call me Elder Sister Mei. The word senior makes me feel a little old. Mei Shuai-yen smiled in a warm manner and said, "This place is filled with men, and Miss Miao seems to be a little uncomfortable here. Why don't you follow us to rest in a quieter place? And, Miss Chiao, you should come with us as well." Miao Xiao Miao was going to be one of their sisters in the future, so it was within reason to address her warmly. As for Chiao Ying, Mei Shuai-yen truly didn't know how to address her, and could only call her Miss Chiao as per custom. Sure. Miao Xiao Miao was very excited. In that moment, she had even forgotten to seek her senior's opinion, directly agreeing. Firstly, she truly felt somewhat uncomfortable here. Secondly, Mei Shuai-yen was actually a person she'd idolized for a long time. She admired this amazing woman greatly, and in her excitement, she'd agreed without much thought. On the other side, Xiaoying also nodded. Her main purpose in coming here this time was to take a look at the exquisite lotus that Jun Mo Xie had taken away. If there was a need, she would rather give up some of her secrets and give the latter some pointers than see the exquisite lotus which she cared for like her own children to suffer at all. If she followed Mei Shuai-yen, she would be able to find young Master Jun. It would naturally be much more convenient than sitting here. Miao Zhan also did not mind and nodded his head. There were too many people here. And although Miao Xiao Miao and Qiao Ying's cultivation were good, they were still girls in the end. For them to go with Mei Shuai-yen was the best choice. Jun Mo Xie was most likely the great prodigy Mo, so Miao Zhan naturally did not have to worry about Miao Xiao Miao. Even if he weren't Mo Jun Yi as they had guessed, Mei Shuai-yen would definitely not do anything bad towards Miao Xiao Miao given her status. I wonder who this elder sister is. Miao Xiao Miao looked at Guan Qinghan and asked. My name is Guan Qinghan. Guan Qinghan replied with a gentle smile as she introduced herself. Whether it was Mei Shuai-yen or Guan Qinghan, both of them felt a bit of jealousy in their hearts in the instant that they saw Miao Xiao Miao. Such an elegant and beautiful girl was actually the first girl that had intimate relations with Jun Mo Xie in sober circumstances. But after seeing how adorable and easygoing Miao Xiao Miao was in person, along with the pitiable look between her brows, forget about thinking of her as a villain, even the feelings of jealousy had disappeared. The situation was already like this, and the wood had already been made into a boat. Rather than being unhappy in their hearts, they might as well open their hearts and accept reality. Moreover, This Miao Xiao Miao did not seem like the kind of girl that was difficult to get along with. Miao Xiao Miao could feel that the gazes of these two beauties were somewhat strange as they looked at her. At the same time, she also felt quite confused in her heart. Why are they looking at me with such complicated expressions? Still, so this is the girl whom the evil monarch had stood against the world to protect back then, silencing all rumors in the world, to the extent of being willing to slaughter a river of blood. Guan Qinghan. Is Jun Mo Xie out there? Xiaoying asked, causing Miao Xiao Miao to perk her ears up as well. She did not find it strange that Xiaoying would suddenly mention the evil monarch, but she was more curious about how this legendary ruthless and bloodthirsty, as well as shameless and despicable hoodlum, looked in real life. Miss Qiao, do you wish to see him? Mei Shuayan said with a smile that wasn't a smile. Mei Shuayan had already heard the story between Xiaoying and Jun Mo Xie before, and she naturally knew that this all-seeing Rakshasa had once been brutally tricked by Jun Mo Xie several times. Any girl that had been tricked by young Master Jun before would usually fall into a very pitiful state. To this point, Mei Shuayan had a very personal understanding. Thus, Mei Shuayan's gaze was rather meaningful as she looked at Xiaoying. I don't want to see him. For some reason, a sense of panic rose in Xiaoying's heart as Mei Shuayan looked at her. Hurriedly denying, she said, I only want to check on the exquisite lotus that he took away from me. At the same time, she scolded herself in her heart. What am I panicking for? Why should I panic? However, her heart was jumping wildly. This kind of feeling was extremely strange, as if she were a mistress who had suddenly bumped into the official wife. At the same time, she realized with shock. This venerable Mei had received her nickname back then, because of her cultivation at the venerable realm. But, from the looks of it now, how could she just be a venerable? Right now, she might be around the same level as her. In fact, she might even be a level stronger. Could it be that her nickname, Venerable Mei, had came from a cultivation of Saint Venerable instead of just Venerable? But this seemed rather unlikely. But if that was not the case, how could her cultivation have risen so quickly in such a short time? This way, please. Mei Shuayan and Guan Qinghan led the way in front, and walked towards the other direction. Seeing the four great beauties disappearing into the distance, the crowd could not help but sigh heavily. The four great beauties gathered together like that had truly been an excellent sight. With them leaving like this now, they would likely never get to see such a beautiful sight ever again for the rest of their lives. To say that this building was a large hall, it was more appropriate to call it a tent. Only, this tent was undoubtedly extremely huge. It was many times higher than a regular tent, and millions of times larger. But even this tent did not give anyone a feeling of being simple and crude. The surrounding tables and chairs are arranged neatly, and every table was draped with a luxurious tablecloth. A pot of fresh flowers was placed in the middle of each table. Every branch and leaf was luxuriant and bright, while the flowers were a charming pale blue. These flowers alone gave a fresh feeling in everyone's hearts. When the guests entered, and they saw the flowers, everyone could not help but be shocked. When they finally confirmed the species of flowers it was in front of them, they could not help but to become even more speechless. Austere heart orchid. These mystical flowers were very rarely seen in the Xian continent. To call them mystical flowers, it would be more appropriate to directly call it mystical spirit herbs. For a fully bloomed austere heart orchid, if one had the chance to just swallow one petal on it, they would immediately gain immunity to 100 poisons and a myriad of evils for 1 year. Although the effects would only last for 1 year, It was the equivalent to countless more chances to live for these cultivators who roamed the pugilistic world. However, these flowers took a long time to bloom, requiring 3 full years each time. Furthermore, the time they remained in bloom was extremely short, only around 3 days. To preserve the petals was even more difficult. Its medicinal efficacies would only remain if it was kept using warm jade or other rare storage materials. They were extremely hard to come by. But all these flowers before them were clearly a gift from the evil monarch to all of them. Each table had 8 seats and each austere heart orchid with exactly 8 petals. This evil monarch is truly generous. So many austere heart orchids. Just a single stalk would be able to fetch at least 1,000 liang gold on the market. As for the living plant itself, the value was even more unimaginable. They were things that only had demand but no supply. But here, there are several thousand pots of them. Just these austere heart orchids alone was worth a terrifying amount of wealth. However, the evil monarch was treating them like balls of cabbages, putting them on the table. This wealth and this generosity was truly too extravagant to the point of causing everyone to be speechless. The smell of orchids permeated the entire hall, causing everyone who walked in to feel a light and refreshing feeling in their hearts the moment they walked in. There was a name on every table, and as long as one took out their invitation letter, they would be led to their seats. Because there were too many people, and the space was limited, so apart from the Holy Lands, all the other factions that were invited had only been allowed to send one representative. As for the fatty Tang Yuan, the Blizzard Silver City, Dongfang family, Duanmu family, and the rest, they were not seated here with the rest. After all, they were people close to young Master Jun, and they had a special relationship with him, so there was nothing the rest could say about it. Of the people that had come in early, only Li Yuran remained in the common hall. Although Tian Xiang had a close relationship with the Jun family as well, but from the position of a country, it wasn't too convenient for them to stand out too overly. Right now, Li Yuran had already dissolved any intentions of being an enemy of Jun Mo Xie. In fact, he could be considered to be a person on Jun Mo Xie's side. But with his character, he would not display that in an obvious manner. Only by being close to both sides would there be a chance to obtain valuable information. Perhaps with these things, he would be able to win the true friendship of Jun Mo Xie. This was Li Yuran's true final goal. The crowd gradually filed into the hall and saw the extravagance of the evil monarch for themselves. At the same time, they discovered one more important thing. True to the evil monarch's words, they were truly all treated with complete fairness. Apart from having their tables placed a little closer to the front, there were no difference to their table or their treatment from the rest at all. At this time, the only ones who were feeling uncomfortable were the 3 Holy Lands. This story will be continued to chapter 1091. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.